Placement lines are a great way to get a design to go exactly where you want it to go. I've opened a new blank design, click on Show Grid, and right-click on Show Grid, place a check mark by Snap to Grid, and click OK. Right-click on Show Hoop and choose the large oval hoop. Make sure there's a check mark by Show Hoop and click OK. We're going to rotate the hoop in order to make it easy to add lettering. So enter 90 degrees in the rotate by box and press enter to rotate the hoop. Select the open object tool and activate keep hoop position. This will keep the line exactly where we digitize it rather than it snapping back to center. Have a single line selected, and I'm going to choose a color that will show up. Create a left click on the lower left part of the hoop. Click again with a left click in the center of the hoop. Go up one grid space, click again with a left click. Come down, click again, and then over to the right side of the hoop and press enter. This line will help you place the center of the towel. Press A on the keyboard to open up lettering object properties. Type in Live Your Life, press enter to go to a new line, and then in the, press enter again and add wow. Scroll to find the Amalfi Coast font. Always remember to look at the suggested size range. I'm going to make this lettering 0.5 inches, and I want it to be center justified. And click OK and click on the screen. Now, while it's selected, I'm going to turn that into a contrast color and also change the position X in the transform toolbar to 0 and press enter, and that will center the lettering. I'm going to move that up in the hoop using the up arrow key, and whenever the grid is activated, sometimes you have trouble moving that lettering. So you can click and drag and move it to the top of the hoop, and then you'll probably have to change the position X back to 0 and then press enter, and that will center the lettering within the vertical center of the hoop. And I want to spread out the lines of lettering a bit. That can be done through reshape. And this symbol that is at the left corner of the baseline can be used, and to click and drag to spread the lines of lettering apart. Press escape to get out of reshape. And the next thing is to add a basting box. One of the greatest things about software is that you can add a basting box at any point in the design. It doesn't have to just be at the beginning of the design. We're going to use a rectangle tool for this and a single outline, and I'm going to select a contrast color, and I'll just click in the upper left corner and drag to the lower right corner and click to enter. It does not need to be centered with the lettering. It just needs to surround the lettering, and the purpose of this is to hold the towel in place as you add your lettering. Now, this is a small stitch, so I'm going to double click on it to open up object properties, and I'm going to change the stitch length to 5 millimeters to make it easy to rip out. I'm going to apply that and then go to connectors and never tie in and never tie off. That will make it much easier to remove, and then click OK. Now let's edit some of the lettering. Right now, if I click on the lettering, all 3 lines are selected, and I want it broken apart. So I'm going to go to the Edit toolbox and click on Break Apart. And now I can edit individual lines of lettering. Select in the, and then go to the Reshape object, and we're going to make this go at an angle. And you can play around with this and get it set the way you want it. Press Escape to get out of Reshape. Another thing that I'm going to do is I've changed my mind about the wow. I want this in capital letters. So if I want to change this, I can again just double click on the word and then type in caps. I'm also going to change the type of font, and I'm going to use a true type font for this, and it's a font called Cooper Black. If you don't have that particular font on your computer, you can use any font that is a thick font. You can see the software found Cooper Black. I'm going to select it, and I'll just go ahead and click OK, and the font has been changed. I want this to be a little bit taller, so I can click on that center control point and increase the height of the lettering without increasing the width of the lettering. When I release my mouse, the lettering is now at its new height. It's always a good idea when you use a true type font to check the width of the satin stitch. So I'm going to press M on the keyboard to activate my measuring tool. And for this, I do want to be in metric. So I'm going to switch to metric, and I'm going to check the width of these satin stitches that go across the W. And you can see that they're almost 12 millimeters, which is much too long for a satin stitch. So I'm going to have to make some changes to this letter if I want it to be usable. You have to press Escape twice to deactivate the measurement tool. I'm going to select the word wow, and I'm going to click on Break Apart. This will break apart the word into individual letters. If I select the W and then select the knife tool, I can cut across and divide this into sections and have different angles for the different sections. So this is an editing tool that you may find that you want to use when you're using true type fonts, especially wide true type fonts. And I'm going to click my clicks all in one, but you can make separate clicks and press enter after each set of clicks. So I'll come over here, and I'm going to cut across the letter, come up, and I'll cut across the letter again. I'm going to go around the letter and come down through the other side and click across the letter. So I'm making another click across to divide that particular part of the letter. I'll click again and then press enter, and my W is now sectioned off, and you can see that the satin stitches are going to be shorter versus going diagonally across the W. You can reactivate the measuring tool by pressing M, and I'm going to click and go across, and it is less than 6 millimeters across this letter, which would be okay if it weren't going to be on a towel that's going to be washed over and over again. So I am going to eventually change the type of fill in this. But for now, let's do a little bit of editing. It's always a good idea to watch the stitch player when you make cuts with the knife tool, and to make it easier to just focus on this particular letter, I'm going to draw a bounding box around the letter and change the letter to a different color. That way, when I activate Stitch Player, I can click and drag on the slider and focus pretty much just on the W. And you can see that the underlay is being added. The left part of the letter stitches first, and then the next section, I'll speed this up a bit, and then the third section, and then finally the fourth section. And click on stop when you're finished watching this. Now, we need some overlap in these letters, and depending on how you placed your cut, you may have to add back in some overlap. I'm going to switch to design view, and then I'm going to turn off stitches, and actually I'm going to deactivate my grid as well. And remember the order of the stitching. this part of the W stitches first and then this second part. And you can see that there is a split here. And I have the choice of reshape, and I could reshape that first part or I could reshape the second part, but I do need a little bit of overlap. You can move multiple points by dragging a bounding box around them, and I'm just going to create just a little bit of overlap. And then I want to move, of course, this point down here. You can always add another point by left clicking and then dragging. So that creates a little bit of overlap in those letters. Now, if I press the Tab key, I can go to my next letter. And this time I will hold down the Control key and I'm going to select multiple points to reshape. And by clicking and dragging, I'm setting those points a little bit over so that it will overlap the second section. So the third is going to overlap the second section. While you're in reshape, you can also perfect some angles and then press the Tab key to go to the fourth section. Again, zoom in. If you want to move these all at once, hold down the Control key and select those reshape points and move them over to overlap just a little bit. Now I'm going to press Escape, and you'll notice that I have one tie off and one trim, and that is perfect for that W. I'm going to reactivate my stitches, and we've done the W once. There's no sense doing it a second time because we can just copy this one W and put it over the second W. I'll drag a bounding box around the letter, and I want to group it since I'm going to move it. So I'm going to right click and select group. And if I right click and drag and hold down the Control key, I can make a duplicate of that letter and place it over the other W and then release the mouse. Now, when I click on that, I select the top layer, but if you hold down the number 2 key and click again, it will select the layer underneath. That's not a shortcut that we use often, but it does come in handy. Press the Delete key to get rid of that letter underneath. Now let's also, I'm going to go back to artistic view. Let's also check this. And again, I'll activate the measuring tool by clicking on M on the keyboard, and I will measure across this. You can see that it's less than 6 millimeters. Again, for something that is not going to be washed over and over again, that's probably okay. But because this is on a kitchen towel, I am going to make changes. I'm going to drag a bounding box around all these letters, and I'm going to change them to the color that I want them to be. I'm going to select the O and click on Break Apart, and that will give me access to any kind of stitch angles that I may want to change a little bit later. Drag a bounding box around all the letters and right click on Fancy Fill, and that will change the letters to the default Fancy Fill, but I'm going to change this to another fancy fill. You can see that the software has lots of fancy fills. I'm going to choose 117 4 squares, and I'm going to click on Apply. Remember, Apply will keep the dialog box open. OK will make the change, but will close the dialog box. So if you want to experiment with some of the different fancy fills, use Apply. While all these letters are selected, I want to right-click and group the letters. That way, when we align the lettering, all those letters will be grouped. I'll drag a box around all the lettering, and I want to go to the Arrange toolbox and align centers vertically. And you can see that when I did that, the position is no longer in the center. So instead of using align centers vertically, I'm just going to go up here to the position and enter 0 and press enter, and now they're back in the center. While all the lettering is selected, I can also click on Space Evenly Down if I want those letters spaced. The software is looking at the descender and spacing it according to where the top part of the next row is. But visually, I liked it better the other way. So I'm just going to click on Undo. You can also select the lettering and use either the up or down arrow on your keyboard to move the lettering to be like you want it. I'm going to look at color film, and you can see that this is not stitching out in the proper way. So I'm going to select the basting box and click on back one color to move it so that it stitches right after the placement line. After the placement line stitches and I place the towel on the line, I'll do the basting box and then stitch my lettering. You can do File, Save As, navigate to the location to save the design, and call this Kitchen Towel. And click on Save. For a handout that outlines the steps, please visit my website, softwaresolutions.com.